Now. I understand Charles said you're not allowed to talk to this guy ever again.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Personnel Committee meeting to order. Public comment at this time. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Drug and Alcohol Advisory Board County Executive Reappointments. The first one is submitting the following individual for reappointment to the Drug and Alcohol Advisory Board. Penny Conway is being considered for a 2-year term to begin July 1st, 2019 and end June 30th, 2021. Attached is a letter from Sue Wondolowski, and it looks like a letter from Penny Conway to Miss Miller, and a resume. Any comments or questions of this appointment?
Just want to say again, anybody that's willing to come on one of our many boards, especially the Human Services boards, unless there's a real big problem, I'm all for them.
Okay, motion to move this to full council tomorrow.
Motion.
Thank you. Next is another following individual reappointment for Drug and Alcohol Advisory Board, Christopher Santos of Easton, Pennsylvania. Mr. Santos is being considered for a 2-year term beginning July 1st, 2019 to end June 30th, 2021. Attached is a letter to Sue Wondolowski and a letter from Mr. Santos to Elizabeth Miller, Administrator of Drug and Alcohol Division, and a resume. Any questions or comments on this appointment or reappointment? Okay, motion to move this to full council.
So moved.
Thank you. Next is a couple of, I think there's 6 of them or 7. No, actually, I think there's 8 of them. Appointments to Workforce Board, Lehigh Valley, and the Small Business category. It's an appointment for David Wolf, Easton, Pennsylvania. Mr. Wolf is being considered for an appointment to the Workforce Board representing the business category. He will fill the position formerly held by Luke Cunningham. His term will run between July 1st, 2019 and June 30th, 2021. And there is a letter here with some work history from David Wolf. Any questions or comments to David Wolf's appointment to the Workforce Board, Lehigh Valley, small business? No comments or questions. Motion to move forward, full council.
So moved.
Thank you. Next, we have an individual for the appointment of Workforce Board, Lehigh Valley, in the Workforce Community category. Joseph S. Kowalczyk of Northampton, Pennsylvania. Mr. Kowalczyk is being considered for the appointment to the Workforce Board representing the Workforce Community category. He will fill the position formerly held by Joseph Roy. His term will run between July 1st, 2019 and June 30th, 2021. Mr. Kowalczyk's resume is attached. And I know Mr. Kowalczyk, I think he'll do a great job there. Any questions or comments?
I move.
Move. Okay, motion to move for full council. Next, we have following individual for appointment to the Workforce Board, Lehigh Valley, in the labor category. Appointment for James Irwin of Nazareth, Pennsylvania. Mr. Irwin is being considered for an appointment to the Workforce Board representing the labor category. He will fill the position formerly held by Kevin Lott. His term will run between July 1st, 2019 and June 30th, 2023. And Mr. Irwin has a resume submitted along with this cover letter. And do we have any questions or comments for Mr. Irwin? Okay, the motion to move forward to full council. Thank you. Next, we have individual for reappointment to Workforce Board, Lehigh Valley, in the Institution of Higher Education, C2 category. Mark Erickson, Ph.D., Easton, Pennsylvania. Dr. Erickson is being considered for a reappointment to the Workforce Board representing the Institution of Higher Education category. His new term will run between July 1st, 2019 and June 30th, 2022. And he has a picture and a resume letter, cover letter. And do we have any questions or comments for this reappointment? Nope. All right. Then we'd like to move this forward to council. A motion to move forward?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next, we have a reappointment for Workforce Board Lehigh Valley in the business category. For Kurt Landis, Mr. Landis is being considered for reappointment to the Workforce Board representing the business category. His new term will run between July 1st, 2019 and June 30th, 2022. And he also has a cover letter. And any questions or comments for Mr. Landis's reappointment to the Workforce Board representing the business category? Question?
I think he got a home run there.
Got a home run. Oh, that's always good to hear, right? Fantastic.
Just waited to make that comment.
Okay, all right then.
Bill White retired.
Might be a grand slam.
Okay, I had a motion to move to full council.
So moved.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, next we have a reappointment to the Workforce Board Lehigh Valley in the Workforce B4 category. Lisa Nesbitt, Easton, Pennsylvania. Ms. Nesbitt is being considered for a reappointment to the Workforce Board representing the workforce category. Her new term will run between July 1st, 2019 and June 30th, 2022. And her resume is attached. Any questions or comments on the reappointment to the Workforce Board in the workforce category for Lisa Nesbitt? Okay.
So moved.
Move to full council. Thank you. Okay. Reappointment for the Workforce Board Lehigh Valley in the Labor B1 category. We have Paul Anthony, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Mr. Anthony is being considered for a reappointment to the Workforce Board representing Labor category. His new term will run between July 1st, 2019 and June 30th, 2023. And he has a resume attached to his letter. Any questions or comments for the reappointment to the Workforce Board, Lehigh Valley, in the labor category for Paul Anthony? No?
So moved.
Motion to move? So move. Thank you. We have a reappointment to the Workforce Board, Lehigh Valley, in the business category. Appointment for Jane Brooks of Easton, Pennsylvania. Ms. Brooks is being considered for a reappointment to the Workforce Board representing the business category. Her new term will run between July 1st, 2019 and June 30th, 2023, and her resume is attached. And if anybody has any questions or comments for this appointment, for this reappointment, if not, I'd like to move it forward to full council.
So moved.
Thank you. And last but not least, we have submitting an individual for reappointment to the Workforce Board, Lehigh Valley, in the Joint Labor Management category for James Riley of Bethlehem. Mr. Riley is being considered for a reappointment to the Workforce Board representing the Joint Labor Management Committee. His new term will run from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th of 2023. And Mr. Riley has a bio attached. Anybody have any questions or comments on Mr. Riley's appointment?
Move.
Motion to move. Thank you, Mr. Heckman. And on that note, carrying through the committee meeting, do we have any new business? Unfinished business? Anything we want to talk about? If not, we're ready for adjournment. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
All set? Okay, Finance Committee will commence immediately now. First of all, courtesy of the floor for Finance Committee. Anyone want to speak? Seeing no one. I have been asked, at the request of the Council President, to discuss the quarterly comprehensive financial report or to ask questions for anyone if they've reviewed it. And I'm going to open that up for discussion right now. John?
Well, I had, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Barron for getting the pension fund manager language. I've been bugging you for about a year to fix that, so thank you for getting that updated. The one question I had is in the back section, the Gaming Authority uncommitted. It still lists assets and liabilities, and I was my understanding that that was terminated when we ended the authority.
That will disappear at the end of this calendar year. We eliminated the authority, but there were still bills that needed to be paid for an insurance policy, as well as the final payment for the legal services. We also needed to keep the account open in case any of those funds do come back. As unspent money, we would have to reallocate and reissue a check, or if they send the funds back, we have to send it back to the municipality and say, well, you can spend it on this now. So we do need to keep those accounts open for a little while yet, just to make sure all those funds are spent down and in accordance with the laws that govern the funds that were sent in equal shares to the municipalities.
Okay, and it's governed now by BCED? Is running
Well, I think the funds were always under DCED, and now the state they get that money directly. We're still in control of the money that we sent to the municipalities. It will not go back to the state, the money that we sent to the municipalities.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Yep.
Any further questions on the quarterly comprehensive financial report? I'm sure there'll be other discussions later on once we get. Seeing none? Okay, moving ahead. Review of the 2019 budget amendment. This was introduced by Lori Vargo-Hefner and William McGee on June 6th. Any questions? Lori or Bill, do you want to review it?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman. The increase in community and economic development, 50,000, is that like a adjustment for, because it's budget would have taken care of any raises?
That's the new grant writer position that was put into the budget that council approved. So we're making those funds available because there were no vacancies in the department. We needed that 50,000. That money does not come from the fund balance, however, though, because we've been doing a little bit better collecting taxes this year. We were able to increase the revenue projection to cover all the costs within the general fund that have increased.
Oh. Okay. I just had a couple questions, Mr. Chairman. Nothing major, I don't think. I see, and you might be able to just give me an idea. Courts, Juvenile Justice Center, Inter-County Juvenile went up, is being adjusted up $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that, is that coming out of the adjusted revenues, or did they get new?
So they were able to move money around, is what my understanding is, from contracted services to help cover the overtime.
Yeah.
But their overtime budget is very high. It's much higher than was budgeted for, and Duran and I watch it regularly.
Wow. And you discussed that with the president judge, I assume, or the director of court administration?
Yeah, we have an eye on how to move money if needs be to cover, but yes, it's going to be a discussion item for the budget when we plan the budget for next year.
The only other question I had was, and you may or may not be able to, the Human Services Block Grant is adjusted $850,000. Is that because of it being put in increase in the state budget for would be 1920.
Are you looking at the 803,000?
850,000.
Is it
Wait, I'm looking under Human Services Development Fund,
Human Services?
51100.
51100. Human Services Development Fund. It's the old HSDF.
Yes.
Oh, it's yes. There are additional block grant funding that has come in, but I believe it's also that money then is also put into subcontracted services and then distributed through Human Services. I believe most of that money went to children and youth because of a shortfall in children. and youth.
So I mean, if I'm reading this right, and I mean, I know the HSDF fund, year in and year out with the state, I mean, there were years they didn't give it to us, and then there were years they did, and then they'd up it, they'd drop it. And we could use it for a variety of things. So we got the 850, and the 850 is going to be put into subcontracted services. That's why we're seeing the two there.
Yeah.
Okay,
My understanding is that most of that is going into children and youth.
all right. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. That's my questions on it.
John?
Could you take us through the 911 budget amendments, why they are there, and how well, since we know the transition's already underway or has already happened, could you explain how the budget amendment works with the transition and how that's going?
Correct. Okay, I can do that. That's so basically in the budget amendment for 911, which I believe is on page 2 on the second part. You're talking about the 1.2 million in
Yeah.
additional monies that are coming in. So that 1.2 million that's coming in is the 911 fee that we collect now that we are managing all of the City of Bethlehem's 911 calls. In the budget's worst case scenario, we projected a county contribution of $1.9 million. We have not taken that county contribution out of the budget yet, just in case we need a piece of equipment or an item or something like that. Like when I presented to council, we presented the worst case scenario in the budget. We did not anticipate this $1.2 million. So we got that additional money. We're hoping that more 911 fees do come in for the City of Bethlehem, and we still have that $1.9 million in the budget just in case. So there's no issues with 911 service or anything like that. We didn't feel yet in our budget amendment to drop that 1.9 county contribution at this time. So we're adding the additional revenue into the budget line item.
Okay. So then the other thing is, how did we account for West Bethlehem and the contribution there?
So the state collects all of that money for Bethlehem in total. So that 911 fee is independent of any taxes or any other taxes that are collected. So that fee generated, along with why we stopped giving the discount to the City of Bethlehem, as well as North Catasauqua and Walnutport. Walnutport, right? Yeah, Walnutport. So that being the case, now that it's collected by the state and then distributed based on who you service, we don't have to do that tax cutout anymore.
Okay.
So West Bethlehem is accounted for in that we get the full share from Bethlehem. So the money never goes to Lehigh County, even though they're in Lehigh County. We cover them to the border of Bethlehem, and that's for, as you understand, ease of administration.
Good. Bill?
Just a question for Mr. Barron while you're here.
Mhm.
On the third page of this handout, and this is just for an educational piece for me, I guess. The courts, Juvenile Justice Center, and the overtime wages there, it just sticks out that it's overtime wages. I'm just curious, is that normal for this?
The overtime wages have been high. In all of our 24-hour operations, we have seen like a little bit of an uptick in overtime. We're starting to see that level out and in some places come down simply because we're hiring positions that were open and vacant. So in the jail, at Graysdale, we are hiring for positions that were not frozen, but there was no movement on them. So we're hiring for those positions now. And that is the Juvenile Justice Center, though, is solely the purview of the court. So they control the hiring, firing, scheduling, and the programmatic stuff at the Juvenile Justice Center. So we don't have a say in that. I don't know. I haven't seen their budget for this year. It's due back to us July 3rd. And that is one of the discussion items that we're going to be talking about to make sure we have enough for overtime.
Because as I look at all of this, that's really the only category that actually has the overtime in it. You know, it's a line item, so.
Yeah, we have when we have our budget process, which is ongoing now. The budget books are due back July 3rd from all department heads. We try to make sure, just a simple philosophy and the directive from the county executive is, I don't want to have to go back to council for overtime. So make sure you have enough money in there. Let's present the actual scenario in the budget. This is one line item in the budget, though. It's the court's budget.
So you guys are taking care of the things that you control?
Correct.
The overtime with the hiring?
Correct.
But we don't know where they're at with that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I'll have to talk to someone else about
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't have all the answers there. You'd have to talk to the director of the Juvenile Justice Center
Okay.
and Mr. Green from Court Admin.
it. All right, excellent, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, Lori.
While you're saying this, since you're talking about 24/7, the prison, you're projecting out, I know there were some correctional officers had concerns. How are we looking as you see the budget going forward from the prison?
There are really no issues
With
from the
overtime.
jail with overtime at this point.
Okay.
The staffing is always a challenge at the jail. Mr.
Yeah.
Pastora could speak to that more generally.
Yeah.
And we're in arbitration over the contract. So when that settles and we have a contract with the corrections officers, we're probably going to have to come back for a budget amendment of some sort in November,
Yeah.
just to square up the 2019 year, because obviously we don't budget for raises and contract negotiations. So that might be where we do come back to you. But as for overtime specifically, we seem to be in good shape. And I asked
Nothing
Nick.
balancing out of what we normally
No,
see.
I think we have budgeted. I spoke with Nick the other day because we were talking about overtime.
Yeah.
There was $1.9 million put in the budget for overtime at the jail, and we're going to keep it the same. We believe we're going to keep it the same for 2020, and I don't anticipate an increase there because it looks like they're right on par with some small changes and some staff members some positions being filled.
Because, I mean, the two things we do control are that balance, are the prison and the grayscale. And I mean, that is, sometimes historically we'll see ups and downs, but you feel pretty good about those right now.
Yeah.
And if you could just answer one last question from me. That was brought up about 911. I know, as you said, we're going to get the $1.2 million through the $1.25 charge that now all of Bethlehem. What's the process? Will that be sent directly to us now, or does it go to Bethlehem and then to us?
No, it goes through the state, so the state would send
Right.
that money directly to us.
And the state cuts the check to us?
Correct.
All right.
Yeah, that's why there was, when Todd was here, that was why there was a big discussion on the switchover date.
Yeah.
And whether the first wave of money was going to come to Bethlehem
That's
and
what I'm
then how
wondering.
much they were entitled to keep. We didn't know what the law said
So
about
where
that.
is the dividing line now?
We just get the money from the state
No, I
at
mean,
this point.
when the cut, is Bethlehem, I think, probably, did they keep, because they were running their own option up until what, March?
Correct.
I read where you guys took over.
I believe it was pretty much seamless. We got the amount of money. We got
From
more
that
than we
day
expected
forward,
from
but
that
they
day
kept
forward.
the money
Yes.
before
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we weren't counting on getting any extra 911 fees this year, and then as we got that 1.2.
Okay, and that's
So-
what you're saying?
Correct.
Going through the rest of our year.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm done.
Lori?
I had a question that I probably know the answer to, but you'll definitely know the answer to. Is any of this human service money going to be impacted in any way due to the acceptance or rejection of the state budget, or is a lot of this federal money?
This is the final settle up with the state. So this budget amendment is important now because we get our new allocation for next year. So we have to settle all this up, make sure our rates and our salaries and everything are in order, so that we can apply for the maximum amount of money when the state budget is passed. So this is all very systematic based on where the numbers fall out, the levels of service in children and youth developmental programs, and the list goes on and on.
Okay.
So this is what we have to do to make sure we draw down the maximum amount of money and utilize our block grant money appropriately.
Okay. And the other question I have is the addition of the P Corps to Graysdale that was not there? 63,000.
The $20,000.
Yes.
Um,
We didn't have it before, or?
That's a grant.
yeah, that's the fire doors. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything
The
else?
grant, right?
Yeah.
The grant. Sorry. We weren't sure we were going to get it, and we got it.
Okay, thanks.
Tara?
Last week, we talked about the SAP program and how that might impact the budget. Is that calculated here?
The SAP program
For Human Services, Student Assistance Program?
Well, any money for human services that would be, is that part of the state's 2020 budget, or is it in the current budget year?
That's what I'm wondering how it impacts what you've presented to us.
If anything, it would be in Health Choices, I believe. That's where that money is.
Mental health.
What was that?
I think it's mental health.
Is it mental health?
If the money comes from public assistance dollars, that would be health choices.
Yeah.
I mean, and then if you get out of that, then you're looking at other funds.
I will have to double check, but you will see that we are getting in subcontracted service an additional $500,000.
Right.
I'd have to check with Cindy on the detail of that. I am not 100% sure. That may be an item for the November budget amendment when the state passes its budget, but I don't remember.
So which, are you saying that's under the subcontracted services for Health Choices?
I believe it may be.
Because there was some $800,000 that she had mentioned.
Well, there's the $500,000 in Health Choices, and then under mental health, there was another addition of $2.072 million for subcontracted service. So there could be a mix in there,
Okay.
depending on how that money gets allocated and distributed through the programs and what it is used for.
Okay.
And, I mean, and this is just, this is an adjustment. So, I mean, I don't know, the money may have already been there. I mean, and this was just an adjustment that they can use some of
Yeah,
it.
I was just wondering how what she
Right.
told us last week
I don't remember.
impacts any of this and then the budget in the future.
Go ahead.
I don't think so. I think it's apples and oranges. I think that it's the money that they're getting, and that the money that they're getting is being reallocated within the system, not being asked for as a budget amendment. How they're choosing to disperse the money is what she was talking about.
And if the money does move around between programs, there's a certain threshold, I believe it's 10% of any, like, within the system, within any one org, that we have to get council's approval for.
Right.
That's part of the reason that block grants for us at the county are sometimes very cumbersome. Because if we may have the money there, as Mr. Heckman will tell you, we have the money there, but it's in the wrong bucket. So now we have to get it over to the right bucket to be able to spend it on the right program, and that sometimes requires council's action.
Okay.
Yeah, and human services
I
is
might
a
ask
bear,
you some
Tara.
questions on that, on a side note then.
That's fine, and if you have any other specific questions too,
Yeah, because,
I can direct you to Cindy Smith, because she would know all the movement of that money within the budget amendment that's presented here. I know the detail isn't here.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, John.
Just one quick, could you give us an update on the giant screw? Is
The
that?
Archimedes screw?
Yeah.
The hydropower plant?
So we're still working out the details. Where it stands right now is the state has put up the $1.4 million. Part of it is actually for the studies that need to be done on the canal to make sure there's enough water flow and that the canal will not be impacted by the placement of the low-impact hydroelectrical plant, also known as an Archimedes screw. Okay, we right now are determining. The way we've settled it out for the outlay of money, it is going to be 30% and 30% of the state and the county matching grant, and I believe that 40% will come from the private investors that New England Hydroelectric folks have acquired the funds from, and then at that point, we have to make sure we have somebody in place to do a power purchase agreement, and I know they're working on finding one single person to buy the power that's generated from the plant. And I don't know where they settled that out yet, but that is where we stand today.
But we have not, there's been no expenditure from that line item.
Not as of yet, no, but I know that there will be some expenditures coming in as they start some of the testing and get into the summer.
Okay.
If they
And
stamp
it will
Da
be from
Vinci,
the state. It will be from the state and the county at the same time.
Steve, if they stamp Da Vinci on the side of it, can't they get some more money from us?
No comment.
Oh, my
All right,
God.
just a question.
If there are no further
You
questions,
are
You're the Norco money man. If you can't answer the question
Answer.
about money, who can?
answering that question may get me in trouble.
Yes. Okay, do you have any further questions relevant to Mr. Barron's
relevant
concern here?
questions.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve. Okay. No, I'm talking about what he said about Da Vinci, okay?
It's a science project.
Yeah, it's a science project. Okay. All right, now we go on to an ordinance presented, Mr. Cusick and Mr. Oh, by the way, we move forward on that, correct?
Do you need a motion?
Should we take
Or am I allowed to make a motion if
Yeah.
it's mine?
It was moved, correct? Yes. It's going to be introduced, okay. Wasn't introduced?
Yeah,
It was introduced already, so we don't, okay.
Motion to recommend to full
Thank you.
Second.
Appreciate it. Okay. Review of the Lower Nazareth Township Senior Centers lease, which was presented by Mr. Cusick and Ms. Ferraro on June 6th. Questions or concerns about this? It's pretty self-explanatory. It's about the senior center. No?
Motion to recommend to full council.
Second.
Second? Okay. Thank you. Okay, now we move on to the review of article contracts. 13, Princeton Hydro LLC is the first one. It's a request for proposal. It is for engineering services to develop and design secure permitting to conclude a stream restoration project in Monocacy Creek. The price is $66,740. Any discussions on this? Any further recommendations? Do I get a motion to move it forward to council?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, Nazareth Ambulance.
Oh,
This is a,
Where's Peg?
yeah, where's Peg? This is a proposal from the Nazareth Ambulance Corp. For medical transport services, non-emergency for Gracedale. It's for 5 years. It's for $1,937,000. We've had many discussions about these contracts. Any further discussions needed? Go ahead.
Just, and maybe a clarification.
Go
I know
right
Mr.
ahead.
Dertinger went out, maybe you can, and it's not a biggie, I
Brian's
asked
here,
at the
though.
meeting.
Mr. Barron
The
seems like
company
he's
that,
got the
there was a
answers.
company that I remember it was time to go back and forth.
Lifestar.
Yes,
Lifestar.
they don't exist
They
anymore.
don't exist anymore.
So, I mean, was there any real competition here?
There were 2 people that were interested, and 1 person submitted a no bid. So it was Nazareth Ambulance was the only one who bid.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I know in the past, it's been
They practically live there, so it's
Yeah.
just as good.
no problem.
John, you have a
I
question?
raised this issue before, but why is this not eligible for MATP funding? Medical assistance transport.
I don't believe that. I think because the residents are in that hospitalization, I don't believe they can hit Medicaid twice for different services. I believe it's all inclusive, right? Is that right, Brian?
Brian, why don't you take over for Mr. Barron?
Brian knows.
There you
Yeah,
go.
that's correct. It's included in the rates that we're already receiving, so it's the facility's responsibility then to provide those services.
So, but if we have someone who is not, that is private pay, could they potentially get MATP for non-emergency transport?
If they're private pay, I'm not really sure they would qualify for like medical assistance transportation.
No, that's true.
Bill their insurance
I mean, if you want to do the legwork, I think it would depend on, even though they have private insurance, what their overall income is. I mean, I guess it could be prorated. I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't know how much you would get out of it or whether it would be worth it. But if we had to hire a new person to count that, I wouldn't.
Yeah, so essentially, they're not allowed to double dip, is what you're
Right,
saying.
exactly, yeah. Essentially, the programs are giving the money to the facility, so then the facility has to provide it, so we can't then ask for more money for the same thing.
Gotcha.
And it's
Okay.
also why we provide therapy through the home and other services through the nursing home.
Further questions? Go ahead, Bill.
So this doesn't cover any lift services, like a helicopter?
Right, yeah,
It's just in the
it's
ground.
just non-emergency medical transportation.
Not in the,
Right, correct.
Okay.
for that clarification.
Any
Mo-
further questions?
Motion to recommend to full council.
Got a second?
So moved.
Okay, we're on the agenda. There you go. Thank you. Next is a proposal from Vision Technologies regarding hardware for a switch refresh, which I believe is it's an upgrade that we get replaced every year. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it's a switch. Yeah, switch refresh, whatever they call it. It's for $100,731. Mr. Barron.
And that is the reason we are here, because it
Okay.
is over $100,000. So we need council's approval to make this purchase. It's just the switches that control the traffic over our network.
Okay. That's kind of self-explanatory. Any questions?
Motion to
Motion.
recommend to full council.
Second.
Thank you very much. Okay. Paul Giroux Incorporated. This is for demolition of the Melitas building, which we had an interesting discussion this week on.
Are they going to do it before or after the sale?
I don't know. I would like Mr. Spadoni to comment on what took place, because I thought it was interesting.
I will follow Mr. Barron. I'm making myself in trouble by answering that question.
Oh, okay. That's not,
Mr. Durge would love to address
well, he can, feel free. I mean, what happened was,
You're relying on me, Chris.
you can explain what we saw.
I cannot explain what you saw.
Oh, you can't?
No, what you saw seems to be
Aberration.
something that, one, no one else was able to find, but something that is probably in the cache of a computer somewhere.
Yeah.
A way back
When
machine.
it was made, when it was sent to me by Attorney Spadoni, I called the company, for
Yeah.
which they were very confused.
Wow.
And
Nice.
they were pretty certain that the county owned the building. And then I explained that I was with the county, wondering why they were selling our building. And they quickly said that that was perhaps something that might have just been in the cache of Google somewhere and found in a search, but they are in no way.
Because it was for sale at some point in time?
Well, yeah, it was. We
we
purchased
bought
it
it.
from them back then,
That
So
was,
that was just from
they never took it off.
15 years ago. Well,
They never took it off the book, is what happened.
15 years, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
So what took place was we spotted it. I sent a note out to everyone just to make sure that we weren't demolishing a property that we had put back on the market for $1.5 million. But yes, that was confirmed. I'll
bargain.
take care of it.
Mr. Mealy, Attorney Sorrell, and I have spent altogether too much time in Easton zoning and planning to not do that, so.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you for all your due diligence on that. It was a good work on that.
Thank you for your help.
So this is for the demolition of the Melitas building, that's confirmed. $72,500 for 1 month, is that correct? It'll be done in a month? It says term 1 month. It says- Any questions or concerns about?
I guess
Go
the
ahead.
only question would be, and Charles, I mean, you would know this, you've gone around over there. I know with the condition, and we talked about it, length of backfill and whatnot, what they may happen as they're demolishing the building, they may run into an issue where it may not be as easy as knocking it down.
We've done geotechnical work there. Mazer Engineering has reviewed and done boring samples there. And it's a professional company that's removed out of the building, so it's not a, it's, again, it really is no Martin Tower, so this is a really a
No, but
one-story,
that-
1.5-story structure.
I was just, as they're doing it, the structure itself, because of the condition of the,
There's room behind the building.
oh,
so
all
it's
right,
not-
I haven't wandered
It's
around
not going
back
down to
there.
the railroad.
So we're not gonna, you highly doubt that they would want to make an amendment to this because they run into problems they didn't anticipate.
There is a never say never on those sort of things.
Yeah.
We,
You just doubt that.
yeah, at that point, we would have to see what there is. But for all the work all the due diligence that's been done by both Maser Engineering and the different contractors who've looked at this, we believe this is where we are.
There was a question about the backfill for it was $5,000 worth of backfill, whatever, and they said they would level the site and take care of that, correct?
Yes.
It's okay. Very good. Question, Mr.
Yeah,
Cruz?
could-
Once we have the permits and such in place to take care of that.
Tomorrow.
We're gonna have a watch
I wish.
party? Watch party?
Could you take us through the bidding process as to what happened? Because, you know, we started out with, I guess, the whole job, and then it's been broken up, and then it's negotiation after competitive sealed bidding. What was the thinking behind not separating the three bids to begin with? And were they then asked to break out each one of the
On the
three? Or?
recommendations of the engineers, we put the project out as a single item. That turned out to be fruitless, so we then broke out certain portions of it to make it easier. This is a relatively complex project, both the demolition, but then the grouting and the curtain wall to keep or to deal with, and I really wish I didn't have to keep saying this in public, but the creep that is happening on that hill crest there. So several contractors balked or were concerned about being responsible for that sort of work. And we broke that out again separately to try to make it easier to get other people in there. That, again, turned out to be fruitless, and we arrived at where we are today. We are continuing to meet with other contractors to get their input as to how this can be best done so that there's a comfort level with the contractors being willing to do the work, given the way it's presently need to be done. This is not the simple matter of building something, anywhere else, but I was going to say in Nazareth, but you have sinkholes there, and, it's essentially that same sort of thing, except for it's not a sinkhole as much as it is the creek. They really wish they had a different word for that.
Well, and then let me just follow up then. So when this bid is awarded, presumably the building will be demolished. Then what will your next step be? To bid something else?
Yes.
Or what?
But we are.
Could you
we are
take us
still-
through what the
yeah,
next
we
bid
are still
will be?
working with and talking to other contractors who do the type of work that the next phase will be required for. And I know that we have a meeting on, I think, Thursday to go over some of the possibilities to make this a contract that people can understand or a contract that they'll bid on.
So what will be the next step? To firm up the hill and?
The next step would actually be, once it's graded, it would be to do a finished grading to the proper levels. What the demo company will be doing is just backfilling really the basements on what would I guess be the west side of the building or the upper hill side of the building, so that it's safe and securing that area around for us. After that, it would be to get an engineering firm or operating engineers to level the ground and to assess the curtain wall or the grout that needs to be done to keep that creep from continuing. Then there's the elements of the drainage detention basin that we have there to keep. We're trying to lessen the impact on the city sewer system, so we would be keeping most of the water there, and it would then drain out after the storm, so they wouldn't have the surge from an additional parking lot up here. The electrical, the paving, and the site work.
That would be a separate
Streetscaping and so
bids,
on.
though, right?
Seeing where we can get, what we can couple together and what needs to be separated is still what we're working on here to make sure this continues moving forward.
Okay.
I think if this were any place else in the county, we would be done already. But the hill crest there has raised a lot of concerns with a lot of contractors, and they are responsible to us for the product of their work afterwards. And when there's so many unknowns, even with the geotechnical survey, they're not that comfortable in putting their names on it.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
No.
Shall we move to take this to the meeting tomorrow night? Yes, so moved.
Second.
Second, thank you. Okay, Mr. Barron, you're back up again with control. Oh, I'm sorry. No. It's habit, force of habit, okay. Controller, Mr. Controller, you're up. I apologize.
Move kind of slow with it. I have arthritis
You
in my
take your
hip,
time.
and this weather doesn't help. In fact, one of my auditors has problems with the bad weather with her hips too for arthritis. I said, and she can tell when it's going to rain. I said, then we should be in a weather show. We can I guess we can issue literally a joint forecast.
Oh,
And it's probably better than what we're seeing. on
today's
the
comedy day
joint
at
forecast.
county council, right?
You joined the crowd with the baseball throws. Okay,
I have
so.
4 reports to review this afternoon. 2 of them for the hotel tax, rental tax remittances, and so I will start with those. We did an agreed-upon procedure engagement evaluating the hotel room rental tax remittance from license number 144, the Woodstone Country Club and Lodge, for the period of January 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2017. The first procedure was to determine if taxable revenues, exempt revenues, and taxes due as reported are accurate. We compared the 24 monthly remittance forms submitted during the period to the operator's records and found in 2 months during 2017, taxable revenue per the operator's financial records were greater than the taxable revenue reported to the county due to tax not being charged on pack and plays. This resulted in an underpayment of tax of $2.40, including interest. This amount is deemed immaterial and will not be collected from the operator as stated in our agreed-upon procedures engagement letter. The operator did not report any exemptions in 2016 and 2017. The second procedure was to determine if the operator is using the latest version of the remittance form and that the form was fully completed in a proper and accurate manner. We reviewed and recalculated all 24 remittance forms submitted during the period and found the operator uses the latest version of the form. In 2 months during 2016, the operator made a minor mathematical errors when completing the remittance form. These did not have any effect on the total amount due or remitted. We conducted this agreed-upon procedure engagement in accordance with generally accepted government auditing standards. That concludes the first one.
Thank you, Mr. Zaborski. And any questions?
So when you say pack and play, you mean like a pack and play for like an infant? Like, what do you mean a pack and play?
It's a country club it's a country club and lodge, so they have golf.
Oh, I just don't know what a pack and play is in
It's a
golf
package.
farm.
It's a package and play golf is what they.
Oh.
Pack and play.
They stay overnight.
It's
Oh,
not
like
the
a pack-
maternal.
It's
I
not
was
a
like,
fold-up
you're
thing for
charging
the-
parents
No,
to
it's
bring
not
their
a folding
pack and
thing.
play.
Yeah.
Understood.
It's different pack.
Yeah.
I
Go
was
ahead.
just thinking from,
That's okay.
a parental standpoint.
Everybody thought the same thing, probably.
Pack and play.
I have a question for you, Mr. Solicitor. What brought up the audit on this particular business?
Well, we review these every so many years, so it's just come up.
Oh, it just
it's
is rolling
automatic.
around. I'm sorry. I just was curious if
That flag
if
came
there
up.
had been a red flag or
No,
something.
no,
$2
this is
flag
automatic.
came up.
No,
$2.40.
no. Hey, you never know.
$2.40 flag came up.
I know, that was really
No,
first
thank you.
audit.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
And the next one, Mr. Zaborski.
The next one was for the Holiday Inn Express and Suites in Bethlehem, license number 127, for the period of January 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2017. Again, the first was determined if taxable revenues, exempt revenues, and taxes due as reported are accurate. We reviewed all 24 remittance forms during the period we found in December 2016 and January 2017. The hotel took invalid exemption for a guest in the amount of $455. The hotel did not include rollaway beds and smoking fees in their revenue amounts, resulting in the hotel underreporting revenues by $3,893 in 2016 and $1,892.50 in 2017. The hotel submitted the higher amounts between the taxes due and the tax collected in most cases. There were several months that the tax remittance was less than the tax collected, but the difference was insignificant. The second procedure was to determine if the operator is using the latest version of the remittance form and that they were fully completed in a proper and accurate manner. We reviewed all the forms and found the following. The proper remittance forms were used. The forms were signed, dated, and submitted on time. The hotel did not submit an exemption certificate or folio for a guest in March of 2016. In November 2016, the hotel did not provide an exemption summary sheet with their monthly report. In January of 2017, the hotel made an error on the exemption summary sheet, but the total was correct. In March 2016, the hotel did not submit an exemption summary sheet with their monthly report, and the hotel duplicated the same exemption in November 2000 and December 2017. Based on the findings, we determined that the Holiday Inn Express and Suites owes Northampton County $823.58 in hotel room taxes. We conducted this agreed-upon procedure engagement in accordance with generally accepted government accounting standards. That's the second one.
Any questions? This is part of that collecting our taxes better program.
$323.
Okay.
Okay, the third was an audit follow-up for the Visions Benefit Audit. It is the policy of our office, as required by government accounting standards, to follow up on all audit reporting recommendations. We performed follow-up on the Visions Benefit Audit dated May of 2018 and issued September the 19th of 2018. The following is a summary of recommendations that required follow-up and the status of the corrective actions as stated by Elizabeth Kelly, Director of Human Resources. And she was most helpful with these recommendations. I want to thank her for that. The first one was ineligible individuals included on NVA and ASME eligibility lists. We recommended that Human Resources request that NVA and ASME remove all ineligible individuals from their eligibility lists. In her response to the audit, the director agreed with these recommendations, but learned that it is not feasible to monitor the changes to the enrollees because the list of enrollees includes hundreds of employees, grayscale and corrections, and they do not have any software that allows them to run electronic comparisons. Now, this is an area where we were working with them, because HR is willing to request the eligibility list from ASME twice a year and forward it to the Controller's Office to put on their list for auditing. The Controller's Office agreed to perform the eligibility comparisons electronically as requested by the Director, but requested that HR work with ASME to produce the eligibility list in Excel format rather than the PDF format. Comparisons using our data software, ACL, is much easier and less time-consuming when the sources are in our Excel format. In an email response to our office, the Director agreed to this caveat. Corrective action is being taken. No further follow-up is planned. The second recommendation was ASME Reimbursement Correctional Officers Union. We recommended that since the county reimburses ASME for premiums associated with vision benefits, but no requirement for this was specific in the collective bargaining agreement, that specified verbiage should be included as part of the next contract. Unfortunately, a new contract was not reached with ASME Local 2549, and the two parties have engaged in binding arbitration. If a decision is not made to modify the correct language, we will not pursue this matter further. The next recommendation was compliance. We noted that due to the age of the NVA contract, some of the wording no longer complies with provisions of Article 13 of the Administrative Code. We recommended the county work with NVA to incorporate the necessary contract language into the current contract. In her response, the HR Director agreed with this recommendation. We can now say the NVA contract has been amended to incorporate the wording required under Article 13 of the Administrative Code. No further follow-up is planned. The next one was policy and procedures. We recommended that HR correct inaccuracies in the employee policy manual by simply referring to the current schedule of benefits without listing the specific benefits themselves. In her response, the Director agreed with this recommendation. We will follow up again in 6 months to determine the status of this recommendation. That concludes that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? One question, Mr. Cusick.
Yeah, I'm a little confused here. You know, I get all kinds of offers from NJEA or NEA for supplemental benefits, life insurance. It's never been, I've never been aware of it being written into a contract that benefits be purchased. Could somebody please tell us how that works? Ms. Kelly?
Excuse me, I don't have arthritis in the hip, but I got 6 points.
It's the weather. You can be doing our weather forecast, Steve.
Oh, okay. Some of our employees who are represented by AFSCME have negotiated into their contract the ability to purchase vision and dental. And in the case of Graysdale, they can purchase prescription, those three, but at corrections, it's just vision and dental, through the AFSCME Health and Welfare Trust Fund, or Health and Welfare Plan, which is a joint employer-employee plan that's managed by a board of directors, a trust, who are trustees, to provide these benefits. They only provide vision, dental, and pharmacy benefits. The benefits are very low cost to the employees, and the county pays like a per capita fee for each employee who signs up into these benefits to AFSCME's Health and Welfare Trust Fund.
I guess what's confusing here is typically we bid these things out, or we have a state contract, or are we in some way circumventing a competitive bid process for those services by tying it to the employee union? It just is confusing. If an employee wants to buy supplemental, that's fine, but
we're not providing that insurance. We're providing the monies for the union to provide that service to them.
Well, it's actually the joint.
The joint, yeah, but we're not. This has been an element with AFSCME for a long time, and across the entirety of the state, not just. It's why it's.
It was negotiated into the two collective bargaining agreements at some time previous to this administration. I really couldn't tell you when, but also the employee has a choice. They can take the county vision, dental.
Yeah, it's in lieu of.
Or they can, just those employees, corrections and Graysdale, can choose to be in the AFSCME Health and Welfare, or vision, dental, and pharmacy for Graysdale.
It's not NGAEA.
I don't know the history.
I don't. It seems unusual to me, because typically those are services that we would bid competitively, and it just doesn't. Something doesn't seem. It feels like we're circumventing the competitive bid process that we would normally do to provide those benefits.
This is an element that's been part of their contracts pretty much straight through for the AFSCME units. So, it's just a surprise to find out that that's how a benefit's being provided.
You okay?
That's fine. No.
You seem confused and
I've
stressed.
I've never knew this.
Chairman, what, Mr. Kusick, were you thinking that they put the actual name of the company in? That's what they're looking for. That's missing, or because I mean the trustees can competitively bid that at any time.
They can bid.
That's what I'm listening to this, and I'm thinking they probably just say it's a benefit, and then whether they use National Vision Association or if they use, what's the one with the owl?
I think
and
it's
the glass,
semantics.
whatever,
I think
yeah.
the fact that it was mentioned that they can bid out on their own on
I
this.
mean, was that your point, that they
Yeah,
put actually the
so-
name and then that gets circumvents the whole?
So they are not
Okay.
getting benefits from the county then. They are getting their benefits as part of,
Employees have a choice if they choose.
okay, but then the
The
county,
AFSCME plan.
right, but then the county is paying for the AFSCME plan that it didn't,
Which we agreed to do by contract.
okay, but it did not go out to Yeah.
But I do know.
The trustees can put that out
Yeah,
any
'cause
time
I was appointed to
and be
that.
competitive, so that you're not missing the competitive piece. It's up to the trustees, though, to
Right
be
now, the
competitive.
dental they have is provided by Delta Dental. Vision is NBA, just like ours. Pharmacy, they use Benefart. They do frequently seek bids, even though they're technically a joint employer plan. They do have lots of members who are like townships, boroughs, people like that.
All right, well, that clarifies
And
it.
of course,
Just
we do put our benefits out to bid.
Can I ask
Yeah.
a question?
We're always looking for
Just
better.
from an accounting, you ask about the process. If like they take, they say, well, I'm an employee A and I want to go without my union, do we have an amount that we give them that is the same or different than that if because you have to account for it in your budget, like?
Yeah, they have charges, they have a schedule of charges, all
Okay.
employers are
I'm just curious. I mean, I know this has gone on for some time.
package.
But, because it sounds like it could be an accounting concern, not that there's a problem. You guys have it covered, I'm sure, but,
We know what the cost is, because it's
Okay.
a negotiated benefit that stays in their contract. So we have history with these groups, and then we just get a list of the membership, and then we plan accordingly based on what the costs are.
so when the contract comes up and you're negotiating, this is going to be an issue which will be discussed during
Oh,
contract
absolutely. I
negotiations.
called,
Because you
asked-
want to know they're going to be asking you to reimburse.
Yeah.
And if it's higher than what the county
We need to
would
know.
have paid, then you'd have an issue. So I'm guessing because it's probably, forget, taking the procedure off for a second, the account cost is the same. Roughly.
Yeah, for those particular benefits, yes.
Yeah.
Those are not, I mean, other than
I know they're not
pharmacy is
all-
high cost, but the
Right.
others are not high cost benefits to us.
I just wondered
And they're
from
not high cost.
your
over there either.
standpoint, from the accounting of it at the end of the day.
The amounts have been negligible, but I'm sure when it was negotiated into the contract, there was some sort of benefit given and taken
All right.
based
Yeah,
on.
I mean, that's contracts, but I get it.
Questions, further questions? I have a question, only because it was noted that it was due to the age of the NVA contract. Was that changed, how long ago was
Well,
that done?
when the controller's office did their audit, they found that the contract we had in place with NBA,
Yeah,
which has been, I guess, renewed, or it was one of those contracts where they had what they call an evergreen clause, which means it automatically renewed unless the notice is given that it can't be. And I learned that the original contract seems to have gone back to maybe like 1993 or 92. I don't know if you have that handy. It's quite old. It was quite old.
Okay.
And it didn't contain a lot
Makes
of the required language that we're required to have under the administrative code. So
do we have other contracts like that we have? to
not
look
that I'm
at?
aware of, but we've amended that contract to
Okay.
comply with the code.
All right.
And also, we don't, even though we're not stuck with renewing that, and we do in fact look at from time to time whether we can do better elsewhere than NVA.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions for the group that's up front here? No? Thank you very much. So moved. Okay, we get to move that, and finally, the seized cash account.
Okay, the final one is the seized cash account. It was audited as of June 30th, 2018.
This one's interesting.
The creation of the seized cash account by the District Attorney's Office was a good way to expedite and control the collection of funds seized in drug-related arrests. It allowed police departments to turn over seized funds shortly after they were confiscated, rather than the police holding the funds until there was a forfeiture order. With the funds already in the seized cash account, it was easier to transfer the funds into the forfeiture account or return them to the defendant. The problem with this process is that almost all the duties were assigned to the county detective in charge of drug forfeitures. The detective, through no fault of his own, is not an accountant or bookkeeper. There is no segregation of duties between the handling of cash, recording of the transactions, and preparation, signing of checks. The system in place does not provide a process or feature to quickly and accurately assess the status of the seized funds. Additionally, the seized inventory database To track seizures, the list of court orders and the financial record-keeping software are not integrated, and they do not share information and data. Finally, bank reconciliations are not prepared on a timely basis. They're being done on average in excess of 2 months after the statement date. The system for handling seized and forfeited funds needs an individual with experience in bookkeeping or accounting to perform the record keeping and reporting. Oversight is then needed to perform reconciliations to verify that the accounts and funds are in balance. This additional employee also needs to review the workflow of the process to coordinate the different sources of data and develop a more robust system to capture data, reconcile this data with the financial records, track funds, and prepare any needed reports. Our recommendations were made to the district attorney. His response is they will be taken under consideration. If management decides not to implement these recommendations, they are assuming the risk that errors and improprieties could occur and not be detected. That concludes the report.
Go ahead.
Since we have the longest serving, the most senior DA in Pennsylvania, who will be leaving office at the end of the year, and if anybody runs a tight ship, it's our district attorney. But since we're going to have new district attorney and a new controller, one way or the other, starting next year, I mean, this is just something I think we need to think about and possibly talk to whoever the DA-elect is about procedures.
Well, I think.
I mean, it's always been a controversial thing. You know, people have always been one way or the other on these seized accounts. And I don't see the need to get into this now with Mr. Morganelli. It just doesn't seem to point to it. But I do hear what the controller's saying. And I mean, what he's saying is concerning.
We don't have a protocol in place, is what you're saying.
That's correct.
And we don't have a person that's overseeing the protocols. Now, we have in excess of 80,000 plus 20,000 uncollected funds. So, yeah, we have to address this. I guess that'll be the next thing when we get to it.
Yeah, we're going to have new people. I mean, maybe at some point we'll talk.
I mean, this is. I mean, we have the information on it. We just don't have a process to take care of it. So, any further questions on that, Mr. Zaborski? Thank you for your information.
Thank you.
Good man.
Any further questions on new business, old business that wants to be discussed? I am moving to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Will we get a report on the Glendon Hotel?
A comprehensive one.
I thought it was Mr. Barron's.
Well, he takes the calls, but he doesn't give us the reports.
See you. Have a good night.
Old Stone Tavern.
Old Stone Tavern.
Is that in Yes, that's half burned down.
Yes, he says, how long is this going to go on? I said, well, the guy showed up at 2 meetings. He said, what happened if they showed up 3? I said, I changed my name.
It's going to go on for a while.